Hello everybody and Happy New Year. Welcome back to our story time. I've been all wrapped up because it's so cold outside and the bears have got their hats and their jumpers on as well. I hope you've been keeping nice and warm. Did you have a good Christmas? I hope so. I'm going to tell you a story about how God makes things new today, and it's about a man called Jeremiah. All through time, God has used lots of different kinds of people to spread his word and to do his good works. These people were not always the most gifted or the most beautiful or the most intelligent or the richest. These were just good people. God chose good people to do his works. These men and women sometimes didn't want to become God's helpers because of all the problems that they would face. But God always gave them strength and courage to face these problems. One of these people was Jeremiah. He came from a family of priests. So when God called him, he was very scared because he knew how difficult it would be. What do you do whenever you're scared? Do you maybe hug your teddy bear or get a cuddle from your mummy or daddy? Well, Jeremiah prayed to God and he said, "My Lord, I'm scared that I won't know how to speak your word. I'm very young. Maybe you should choose somebody who knows more than I do." God knew that Jeremiah was scared, so he showed him a picture of a potter. A potter is somebody who makes things out of clay, like plates or vases or cups. It can be a bit like playing with Play-Doh or clay at your house, maybe plasticine. The potter that God showed Jeremiah was making a clay pot. The pot wobbled and lost its shape, but the potter wasn't worried. He rolled it back up in a ball again and he started to make another pot. And this time it turned out perfectly. God said, "Jeremiah, my people are like clay that the potter works with. If they follow my commandments, I will make them good and strong. If they go wrong, I can remake them. The clay can be shaped and reshaped into exactly what it should be. All made from the same clay, but all a little bit different and just right for the job that God has created them for." God told Jeremiah, "I have chosen you, so you have nothing to fear." After hearing this, Jeremiah wasn't scared anymore. I really like the thought of how God can remake us and shape us and fix us. Maybe you could think about God the next time you're playing with your Play-Doh and you could make something really special. We have another story for you now and I really hope you enjoy it.
Hello, my name is Lydia, and today's story is The Christmas Robin. It was cold, very cold, and snow lay thick on the ground. Mr. Robin searched in vain for food. He couldn't find any insects to eat because they were hiding away from the cold. He couldn't go digging for worms because the ground was too icy and hard. At last, cold and hungry, he gave up and flew back to his nest. Mrs. Robin was hungry too. "Is there anything for supper?" she asked. Mr. Robin shook his head. He tried to say no, but it came out as "Brr." "Never mind," said Mrs. Robin cheerfully. "Perhaps we'll have better luck tomorrow." But the next day was even colder, and still Mr. Robin could not find anything to eat. Mr. Robin decided to search for food in the garden of a nearby house. Suddenly there was a noise from the house. With a tweet of alarm, Mr. Robin hid behind a snowman. Peeping round, he saw a window being opened. A hand scattered something on the windowsill. When all was quiet again, Mr. Robin flew up to the window to investigate. Perching on the windowsill, Mr. Robin saw some neat little holes in the snow. He stuck his beak down one of the holes and could hardly believe his luck when he found a juicy currant. As well as currants, there were cake crumbs and bread. There was even some toasted tea cake. Mr. Robin hurried back to Mrs. Robin, and together they returned to the windowsill, where they enjoyed a delicious supper. When they had finished, Mrs. Robin peered through the window, twisting her head this way and that to get a better view. Suddenly she gasped. "Look," she said, "there's a fir tree growing inside this house." The robins had never seen a tree like it. At its top was a bright star, and hanging from the branches were twinkling fairy lights, coloured balls of shining glass, crackers and bags of nuts and sweets. There were also some long pieces of glittering tinsel. "Look at that silver moss," breathed Mrs. Robin. "Isn't it beautiful?" Later that evening, when they were back at their nest, Mrs. Robin said, "Wouldn't our nest look lovely with some of that silver moss woven among the twigs? Will you get some for me, dear?" Mr. Robin gulped. He was afraid that if he went into the house, he might get caught. But he couldn't bear to disappoint Mrs. Robin. "Of course I will. I'll get some for you tomorrow," he said, trying to sound brave. "Now let's get some sleep." Next morning, Mr. Robin flew over to the windowsill. There was no one in the room, and the window was open. He fluttered in and settled on the branch of a tree. Suddenly the door burst open, and into the room came 2 large people and 2 small ones. "Happy Christmas, Matthew and Charlotte," said the 2 large people. "Choose a present from the Christmas tree." Mr. Robin shivered with fright and tried to hide behind a cracker. The little person called Matthew asked for some sweets, but the one called Charlotte pointed to Mr. Robin and cried, "I want the toy robin." "But I'm not a toy," thought Mr. Robin. "I'm a real live robin." And just as a big hand reached to lift him from the tree, he sprang to the top branch and threw back his head and started to sing at the top of his voice. As he trilled and whistled and chirped, the people clapped their hands. When he had finished the song, Mr. Robin flew out of the window and hopped onto the windowsill. Charlotte ran across the room. "Thank you, little Robin," she said, "for making this the best Christmas tree ever. Come and see us again." When Mrs. Robin heard what had happened, she had forgotten about the tinsel. "As long as you're safe," she said, "that's all that matters." But 12 days after his adventure, Mr. Robin found the fir tree lying near the dustbins. Caught on its branches were some scraps of tinsel. Mr. Robin took them back to decorate the nest. Mrs. Robin was overjoyed. She had her silver moss after all. Thanks for listening to our stories. Bye-bye.